And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day today. It is a wonderful day, and I'm all excited to be talking about Ahsoka some more. Talking about episode 7, Dreams and Madness today. And there's one episode left as I record this, and when this goes out, that last episode will be out too. So we will know all of the real answers to the questions I'm going to be asking today. But that's fine. It's great. I just want to talk about Ahsoka and Hera and Ezra and all the other cool people. Let's dive into some of the fun stuff here we got going on. First, let's talk about Hera. It's a little bit more of a follow-up on Hera's storyline, as basically she got arrested. Right? Ahsoka, Sabine, everybody, they zipped off to a galaxy far, far away. And Ahsoka and company ended up going back with the New Republic fleet, and Hera is now having to deal with the consequences of disobeying orders. Now, those orders came in part from Senator Zerano, or as I like to think of him as Senator Jerkface. The dude is just obnoxious, and I had a little bit of problem with in the hearings, like, because we're talking full spoilers with all of this stuff, but Serrano challenges Hera on her reports. Says, "Oh, there's space whales. This is just all silly fantasy." It's like, I can understand the questioning. Were there actually Dark Jedi? There were no other records aside from Hera's testimony and Ahsoka's testimony, which apparently didn't get included, didn't count. I don't know. The Purgle, which, by the way, why did they stop calling them Purgle? Everyone refers to them as space whales. Purgle have been a thing that have been known about for years. Hera talked about them in Rebels as being a threat to shipping. I mean, these are a well-known bit of galactic fauna. Okay, whatever. Anyway, and the fleet got to see them. They almost got ran over by them. I think some of that testimony would have been included. Of course, I've seen the political process. It's fairly common for politicians to ignore facts that they don't care about, or that invalidate their case. So that could very well just be one of those cases, you know. But the other thing that bugged me about this hearing was that Zerano was the only one who really spoke, and he just was attack. Nobody else on that panel spoke to defend Hera. Chancellor Mothma was at least friendly to her. She didn't ask anything about that would help Hera. Admiral Akbar is sitting there on that panel. He was silent. It wasn't until C-3PO shows up and says, "Oh yeah, Leia Organa, who is the head of the New Republic Defense Forces, fully sanctioned this mission and was not aware that Zerano had held a vote against it without her." It's like, okay, yeah, there's some fun political infighting here. But it was fun. The C-3PO inclusion was a nice way of including Leia without having to show Leia. Right? Because obviously Carrie Fisher's dead. Even were she alive, just like Mark Hamill, she'd have been too old to play Leia at this time. Right? Because this is 5-10 years, something like that, after Return of the Jedi. And she would be a lot younger than she was and what she showed up as. And they could do de-aging, they could do other things. They could recast, right? If they wanted to cast Billie Lourd, who was Carrie Fisher's daughter, right? If they wanted to cast her as Leia, or anybody else for that matter, as Leia, they could have. It's the role is not, no role is sacred, right? I can understand the reluctance to recast it, but if it was that important to the story, they could have done it. It wasn't that important. Having C-3PO show up and bring in all of the information that said, "Oh yeah, Leia's fine with this." Okay, that was good, and I think it brought some nice connections, which I fully expected, right? Because yeah, we had these communications earlier in the series between Hera and Mothma, or between Hera and her aide, actually, who said, "Yeah, Leia's gonna buy you time, but there's only so much she can do," right? So the important aspect of this, though, is that Hera and Mothma are talking about Thrawn probably returning. You know, Mothma's like, "How likely is this?" And Hera's like, "We should be preparing for it. Let's hope we don't have to, but we should be preparing for it." So the New Republic is not going to get caught flat-footed when Thrawn inevitably ends up back in the galaxy far, far away. Or back from the galaxy far, far away into the other galaxy far, far. It's all very far away and confusing, but Thrawn's going to end up back in the main Star Wars galaxy. It's almost inevitable. So we shall see where that goes. But that, of course, is not the only storyline. That's not even the main storyline. We've got Ahsoka. Now, she's been in it surprisingly little the last couple of episodes. Well, at least the last episode. This one, it starts with her working through one of the Jedi forms, and I gotta tell you, that form looked really, really wrong. I'm not a master of sword fighting in any way, shape, or form, but reverse grip on swords just doesn't work in general, and whatever she was doing, those forms looked really weak if you were to actually have to use them to defend yourself. But somebody who has more knowledge of martial arts than I do probably saw them as okay. So whatever. But while she's working through the forms, she's listening to a recording that Anakin had made for her when she was still, well, he was still alive, and while they were still together. And Ahsoka says he'd made 20 or more of these videos, these recordings, to help her when he wasn't there to actually train her. And you see, like, Hu Yang, when he finds out about these, he says, "Well, I never knew." So, because yeah, he was a good master. Anakin's flaw was not that he didn't care for people. Anakin's flaw was that he cared for people too much, right? And he cared very much about Ahsoka, about keeping her alive in the face of General Grievous and all of the other bad guys that they had to deal with, right? Count Dooku and Asajj Ventress, and because they ran into a number of people that weren't droids, and they were dangerous. And so he was teaching her how to deal with other people with lightsabers, which, given that she ends up fighting Baylan Skoll, kind of makes sense, right? And that fight, she does better. She uses both lightsabers instead of one. She's been using two lightsabers for a long time. I don't know why that fight on the cliff face a couple of episodes ago, she only used the one lightsaber. But she's there with both of them, and he's better than her, straight up. And it's like, you can't beat me. It's just, I don't have to. She just needs to get by him. And she eventually does. It was interesting, though, watching that fight, or more to the point, the end of the fight. Skoll didn't want to fight her in the first place. You can kind of see that, but it's going to happen. There's nothing that can stop that. But when she escapes, he's almost relieved, it looks like, that he didn't have to kill her. See, the more I've seen of Skoll, the more I realize that he really has kept a lot of his Jedi principles. Not all of them, obviously. He's thrown out a lot of them in his own search for power. And he's certainly trained Hoti to be ambitious and power hungry, and not in good ways. Okay. In fact, he talks to her at one point. He says, "Yep, our destinies are going to take us along different paths," and encourages her to go take her place in the new empire. So, yeah, it's there's something he's sort of on this religious quest, I think, and we'll see how it ends. I hope next episode, because it's going to be awkward to try to resolve it in a second season if one happens, because the actor died. I mean, they could recast Skoll, they could do other things, but I'm hoping they won't have to, right? I'm hoping that Skoll's arc is resolved nicely within all of this. Now, Hoti, she is your typical power-hungry, ambitious kid in some ways. In a lot of ways, I almost want to say she's naive, but she's so convinced that she's right that at one point when Ahsoka says that she can help her, that Ahsoka could help Hoti gives this look like, I don't need help. Why are you even asking or offering that? And then takes off running and flees with the night troopers. So Hoti's going to be an interesting character too, I think, going forward. It'll be fun to see where she ends up. I'm kind of wondering if Hoti is going to play sort of the role of, dang, I'm blanking on her name. She was the sort of the hand of the Emperor, the dark Jedi, basically that tried to assassinate Luke, and then eventually they get married. And I'm blanking on her name, which is annoying because she was one of my favorite characters out of Legends. But I'm not sure Filoni's going to take that route with Hoti. So we'll see as she goes and the story progresses. The other there are lots of fun things, but it was really fun too seeing why Thrawn was so feared as a tactician. Obviously, we get that a lot of that in words from the legend stories and some of the new canon Thrawn stuff as well, which I haven't read. I read the legend stuff years ago. I haven't read any of the new Thrawn books. But you can see even just in this episode, right? Okay, if Ahsoka shows up with one of these whales, blow them to heck and back. Okay? Destroy them with extreme prejudice. So, okay, cool. And the dude kept a lot of mines on his ship. But when Ahsoka flees the mine, she's being chased by fighters and hides in the dust cloud, the rings of this planet that are the bones of Purgles. Thrawn calls off the attack. Okay, so she's good at hiding. I need to know everything about her. And he finds out that she was the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker. And Thrawn says, okay, she is going to be unconventional. She's going to be aggressive, and she's going to come at us in weird ways. So what we're going to do is put her on the path that she thinks she wants, but it's one that we want her to be on. Basically, he's going to force her to make the choice that he wants her to make. So while she's hiding, he gets the Night Sisters to find her using their dark Night Sisterly force magic things. And once they find her, of course, starts shooting at her and sends the fighters after her. His plan, he wants Ahsoka to find her allies. And when she does reunite with them later, Morgan Elsbeth challenges Thrawn on this. Like, how is this a victory? All I see is our enemies united. He says, let me show you what I see. And he shows, we're loading up our cargo. They were like 81%, I think the graphic showed. This will be loaded. We'll be done loading all of this stuff very soon. I want Ahsoka and her friends far away from us. So his plan is to push them far away and to a point where they can't get back to him in time. He doesn't have to win by force of arms. He just has to keep them sidelined long enough for them to leave. And at that point, yeah, I don't care if they're dead. I don't care if they're exiled. They just need to not be here. And so I think we've got a lot of that coming. Obviously, the heroes are not going to just sit around and accept that. But you can see Thrawn is using his ability to keep his actual goals in mind. His goals are not to kill Ahsoka or Ezra or Sabine. His goals are just to leave with the Night Sister cargo. So that's the goal, right? So many shows, so many movies, you see the villain, they have their main goal. Try to take over the world or whatever it is they got going on. The tri-state area is going to be conquered by Doofenshmirtz. Something, who knows? But the reality is, the way a lot of these shows work is the villain allows themselves to get distracted from their main goal by fighting the good guys. And Thrawn is not letting that distraction be a distraction, I guess. I could have phrased that better, but he's not letting them be a distraction. Instead, he's using his soldiers, using his ships, his firepower, to force them in a direction that makes things easier for him. And then when he's got them where he wants them to be, not necessarily dead or anything, just they're out of the way. We can delay them more if we need to, but there's nothing more we can do at the moment. These are acceptable losses, especially because Baylan did not join the fight. What's up with that, right? And we'll pull back. Time is not on their side. We're almost done. This is the priority, not them, right? And that's where you see sort of the difference. Elsbeth became focused on killing the good guys. Thrawn's focus has remained on, we are leaving. This is the goal. We are leaving. We are taking our Night Sister mothers. We are taking their cargo, and we are gone. That's the goal. So, yeah, you can see that feared strategies, the feared tactician that Thrawn is through some of his actions here, which is great. Now, some of those heroes, Ezra and Sabine, get to have a little bit more of a friendly chat. And Sabine is still avoiding that really hard conversation that she and Ezra need to have. Right? She is still happy just to have made a connection with the one person who's one member of her family, her found family, since her actual family is now dead, apparently. She's reconnecting with the one person that she had any real connection with. And I understand her problems. If she tells him exactly what happened, I teamed up with Thrawn, or the people looking for Thrawn, to get here. And because we got here, Thrawn is going back and will threaten our galaxy. That's going to be a hard conversation to have with Ezra. And because the other side of that is, Thrawn's not going to just give us a lift back to our own galaxy. And, Ezra's really excited to get home. So, yeah, that's going to be a hard conversation to have when it finally happens. But Ahsoka's here and doesn't have those reservations that Sabine has. Ahsoka will tell Ezra straight up, oh yeah, Thrawn's here. I don't know how we're going to get back, but whether we ride more whales or what, but at least they've got another ship. So we got that going. But there are a couple of really interesting things that came out of their conversation. Or really one I want to focus on because I thought it was interesting is Sabine is sort of recapping the last 9 years or whatever of time since Ezra disappeared at the end of Rebels. The Empire's gone. Palpatine is probably dead. The Empire was defeated at the Battle of Endor. Okay, yes, that's true. The Empire was defeated at the Battle of Endor. But the Empire surrendered in canon. This is a canon thing. Now, it's in the books, not anything else, but that's still officially part of Star Wars canon. That the actual ends of the Empire was at the Battle of Jakku a few years later. Now, Sabine may not know that. Okay. She's been living on Lothal ever since Rebels. Well, I say that. She spent time training with Ahsoka, so she may know more of what's happening in galactic geopolitics than she had. But the fact that they had the Battle of Endor listed as the end of her view of the end of the Empire, not the Battle of Jakku, is interesting. Now, again, Sabine could be mistaken, just doesn't know, but that's that could be fun. It's also possible that the Battle of Jakku hasn't happened yet. I don't think that would be the case, but because that would shift this whole series a lot earlier in the timeline. Because according to canon, I think the Battle of Jakku was 3 or 4 years after the Battle of Endor. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. But it was fair. It was years after Endor, but not many years after Endor. And it was after the Battle of Jakku when what was left of the Imperial Navy headed out to the unknown regions. And you watched as part of the Empire or the Emperor's contingency plans were coming into place. You've got oh man, I am blanking on names this morning. This is why I shouldn't record these at 6 o'clock in the morning. But everybody, the Empire warped out, and that left the one bureaucrat or something to actually officially sign the Imperial surrender. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know if it's going to make any difference or not, but it was really interesting for me. Look at sometimes what's canon and what's not. And Filoni has not been afraid to throw out what had been established as canon. Right? One of my favorite Star Wars books is the Ahsoka book by E.K. Johnston. And, that talks about Ahsoka's history. It talks about how she captured Maul. It talks about her exile and how she got basically built 2 new lightsabers. Well, what we end up seeing in a couple of different places within the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars of season 7 gives a different story of how she captured Maul. There's a Tales of the Jedi episode that tells a different story of her in hiding and how she becomes Fulcrum and starts working with the rebellion than what happens in the Ahsoka book. So I said Filoni's not afraid to throw all of that out. And he did. So it could very well be that the Battle of Jakku, which they don't show the battle, they show the aftermath of the battle in The Force Awakens, right? That's all the litter that Rey is pillaging to get her portion of Instabread or whatever that she's got going on, right? As she takes her speeder across the desert, and you see a crashed Star Destroyer and wreckage of X-Wings. It's from the Battle of Jakku. Right? So, yeah, it's interesting. We also did find out, and actually this came out of the discussion with Hera, we did get confirmation that this story happens after Mandalorian Season 3. Because they refer to the incident on Mandalore, they know about Moff Gideon and his attempted uprising. They, Senator Jerkface over there called it an isolated incident, but that was still part of this whole timeline that they're laying out. So yeah, this is all sort of fitting within that same Mandoverse timeline. Okay, you could watch those series or seasons in release order. Mando 1, Mando 2, Boba Fett, Mando 3, Ahsoka, and we're all on this one linear timeline. So, good to know. I had proposed at one point that maybe this was set before Book of Boba Fett. It's not. So, okay. Good to know. So last couple of things. One, I was really glad to see that Sabine brought her Howler with her. It was tucked into Ezra's RV, which was kind of fun. And yeah, the Noti, I think they said the race was. They're in these pill bug shaped. It looks like it's an RV caravan, is what it looks like, and it's kind of fun. And honestly, it was really cool. There's lots of lightsaber fights, blaster fights, chases, escapes, true love, all that. Sorry, Princess Bride coming out again. But all of that was really fun. And Ezra refusing to take his lightsaber back from Sabine, I think, is meaningful for a couple of reasons. The fact that, no, I gave it to you. This is yours. You may want this. I don't need it. I have the Force. And he uses it. He does. He goes out and kicks butt. And it was fun. We got to see classic Ezra trying to fast talk his way out of bad situations, and this guy they got to play Ezra, he is nailing the character from Rebels. And the same is true for the actor playing Sabine. They are nailing these characters from Rebels, and I'm loving it. I love Rebels. It's a great show. Highly recommend watching it. So, it'll be interesting. Now, I've heard a couple of people suggest that one of the reasons Ezra declined a lightsaber is that we're going to see him either one, make a new one for himself, because it turns out Hu Yang trained Jedi to make lightsabers. Now, Ezra had already made two. He made a previous one, and he made the one that Sabine has, so he's not unfamiliar with the process. He just needs a kyber crystal. It's possible they have one on the ship. It's also possible Thrawn has Kanan Jarrus's lightsaber on his ship. He may also have that portion of the Jedi Temple that had been removed from Lothal, where Ezra had been tempted by Palpatine. Will any of that matter? Maybe, maybe not. It's possible Thrawn actually doesn't have Kanan's lightsaber, but you know, it's reasonable to assume that he does. It was offered to him on Lothal, though he was not physically there at the time. He did show up later, and it's possible that somebody brought the lightsaber to him. So, you know, if he had it, it wouldn't be that big of a surprise. I wouldn't be overly surprised if he didn't have it either. So, you know, so there's that potential for Ezra, and he's been living for 9 years or something without it, so maybe it doesn't matter. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see. Oh, I just had a really weird thought. So I think they said Ezra's been gone for 9 years as part of the conversations. Ezra disappeared before the Galactic Civil War as we see it in the original trilogy. Right, that means he disappeared before A New Hope, and that whole story went for 3 or 4 years. And we don't actually know how far before A New Hope Rebels, the end of Rebels, is. So let's say you got the 4 years of the Galactic Civil War, and then maybe 5 years after. What if they rewrite the history of the Battle of Jakku? Now, the Battle of Jakku, you had the Imperial Commander Ray Sloane, who was trying to hold the Empire, at least the Empire's navy, together. And it was her fleet that was defeated at Jakku. Now, what if they rewrite canon a little bit? They could still have Ray Sloane there. But what if she was there at the direction of Thrawn? What if Thrawn was pulling all of this together? And what we see here is we eventually see the Battle of Jakku coming through Thrawn. It's sort of a far-fetched idea. I fully expect it to be wrong, okay? Sure, I'll take credit if I'm right, but I fully expect to be wrong here. Because I don't think Filoni is going to mess with canon that much. But that would be a really fascinating take, is that the actual end of the Empire came about because of the New Republic defeating Thrawn. That would be a really interesting change. And said it's going to throw out so much of existing canon that I'd be hard pressed to say that Filoni's going to do it. But man, that would be a thing. It would definitely be a thing. All right. Well, I think I've rambled on about this enough. This is talking about Ahsoka Part 7. This has been great. Part 8's out now. It's the last episode in this season, at least. Maybe a series, but at least this season. This will be the last episode. And it's out now as you're listening to this. You can go watch it. I'm all excited about it. And if you want to talk more about Ahsoka, come join the Discord. We could talk about all this stuff, or drop your theories in the comments. What all's going on? I don't know. Again, theories. The episode 8 is going to be out. We'll talk about that again next week. But until then, this has been great, and I hope you have a great week. Be excellent to each other. This is Music Free Static signing off.